Okay, so are we recording right now? Okay,
Yeah.
so welcome. Um, we are with Will Tuttle, the author of the Amazon bestseller book, The World Peace Diet, and he has accepted my request to have this interview. Um, as I mentioned before, not many people want to discuss about these topics because it's too much of a hot topic in a way, like they don't want to touch it. Um, However, I believe if you want to find the truth, if you want to find the what is real, what is true, what is not, we need to be able to discuss any type of thing. And so we're here to ask Dr. Will Tuttle some questions. So how are you, Will?
I'm doing
Let's start
great.
with
Thank
that.
you, Semi.
Yeah, you were in a tour. How many months? It was maybe 4 months or so, right?
Yeah, about
And you
five
just
months actually. Yeah, we did about 70 lectures in 5 months, and we just got back to
5 months,
California.
and you just came back. Yeah, you are doing a great job with this, informing people for how many decades? Almost, 40
Yeah,
decades, I believe, right?
right. Yeah.
Very good job. So, um, before, let me mention about Sarina Farb as well. I don't know if you know her. Born Vegan
Oh yes, Serena Farb. Yes, I know her. Yes.
is her nickname. So I had a podcast episode with her. Her name podcast name is Science is Great Podcast. So I'm also thankful to her that she's the only vegan before you that accepted to talk about these issues, discuss about these issues. So my first question: what is the natural balance, and how does it connect to spiritual wisdoms such as Taoism or Zen Buddhism?
The nature of balance. Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. So es- essentially, um, from my point of view, we as human beings we live in naturally in harmony with nature and and with our spiritual nature, but we live in a society that is completely out of balance and out of harmony with nature. And primarily, I think the fundamental reason for that is animal agriculture, what we call animal agriculture, which is basically herding animals, stealing their freedom, oppressing them, killing them, eating them, sexually abusing them on a massive scale, millions every day. And so, as I talk about in the World Peace Diet, and especially in my new book, which is this one, Food for Freedom, there, science, as what we know as science, we love science because it's given us technology. And we love technology because it has given us comfort and convenience, we think. But this technology, this science that we venerate and is like the new religion, is really based on dominating and exploiting other living beings. That I think if you trace the roots of science back all the way to the beginning, you see animals, cows. First, it was sheep and goats, and then later cows, and humans figuring out how to breed them in certain ways to get more wool and more milk and more flesh and have them be more easily controlled and docile. And so just systematically dominating and exploiting animals. And then with this idea that we're superior to them and we're superior to nature. And so science, in its very core, is materialistic. It reduces basically life to matter. So that's out of balance because I think essentially what we are is consciousness. I think we know that at a deep level that we are conscious awareness. We are spiritual beings essentially. And we manifest in a physical body, in a physical earth, but that's not our true nature. But science blinds us to this, and it teaches us to dominate and exploit animals and nature and each other. And so now our technology has gotten so powerful that it's way out of balance. I mean, we're destroying ecosystems and surveilling each other, and now we're being turned into livestock the same way we turn these animals into livestock. So Taoism and Zen Buddhism and these ancient wisdom traditions, there's other ones also, are based on inner work where we regain our balance with nature, balance with our true nature, and live and learn to, again, look with eyes of kindness and compassion on other living beings rather than see them as material objects to be killed and used. I mean, it's barbaric. It's really satanic, quite honestly, I would say. So, balance is the most important thing in many ways, to come back into harmony with nature and with each other. And technology and science continually take us away from harmony. Everything they do destroys our harmony with nature. We don't realize it. That we love the conveniences. We think they're conveniences, but they're not really. Could you hear me
So,
okay?
yes, perfect, very well. So it is not in within my question, but just popped up in my mind. So what percentage of people do you think knows that technology is inherently bad?
Maybe less than
If you can guess,
1%. I would say less than 1%, because
yes,
we're taught.
less than vegans.
Yeah, yeah, vegans also.
I'm
Vegans are the same. We don't, most vegans worship science, right? We look to the science to somehow solve our problems. And I think that's a huge mistake. Science is never going to solve any problem that we have because it's based on a delusion of materialism. Science only looks at material causes. And there's a great saying by Giordano Bruno, who was a great philosopher in the medieval period, who was burned at the stake for heresy. And he said, if the first button on one's coat is buttoned wrong, then all the other buttons will be buttoned wrong. And that's the problem with science. It's like the first button, the very foundation of science, is wrong. And so we think we're making progress, that we're getting more and
yeah,
more understanding of this universe and going farther and farther in our understanding. We don't realize that we're going farther and farther away. We're becoming more and more ignorant and more deluded the farther we go. And now we're at the point where we're giving away our power to AI, right? To artificial intelligence. We think that somehow artificial intelligence and robotics and these massive electronic surveillance systems and defense systems and pharmaceutical systems are going to give us health and are going to give us convenience. And you can see that all they're doing is stripping away our wisdom, our sense of solidarity with each other and with animals. People are becoming more afraid, more isolated, more sick, more miserable than ever. It's so obvious that these should be our greatest enemies in many ways. We think, oh, it can be good or bad. Not, in a way, not really. I mean, it's only going to be bad because the underlying button is wrong, right? The underlying materialism and point of view, it just warps our consciousness. It narrows us down, and we don't see the inherent truth of being. I spent thousands of hours reading books that were written 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, right? The ancient wisdom, like some of these old Buddhist, the Upanishads, the ancient Buddhist teachings, the ancient Taoist teachings, they are so far beyond in wisdom anything we're creating now. These people, we think, oh, they
yeah.
were so
Our worst
miserable, they were primitive barbarians. No, they were actually living, I think, in a lot more harmony than we can even imagine today, actually.
more civilized than many of people today, I believe, right? And
Right, I think
there is
more,
another thing
yeah.
with science and technology that uh, people, I think it's, I say it is arrogance of humanity that they think that they can solve problems by effort against nature. So not trusting nature, that's the spiritual part there, spiritual connection that you need to trust because it is eventually us, but we don't realize it. We think we are separate and we are pushing our type of, this imbalance, these new novel solutions supposedly are actually false solutions, and there's such a thing called unintended consequences of these supposed solutions, and they're all coming back to us. And many people, they don't even realize this. All these things are coming back to us, multiplied. In my documentary, I have mentioned this in the book also. Complementary to that documentary, because I believe that for people to get this message, we need to really two ways. One, they can get it intuitively, as you mentioned. Another one, they need to get the mechanism because some people are like logic based, right? So they need to understand, like, for example, me, what convinced me was understanding that mechanism that when you uh, make a, change the system with your false solutions, it comes back with more problems, back to you, and you have to solve those solutions too. And I just realized that actually civilization, as I mentioned here, is the accumulation of all these false solutions. And yeah, I mean, um, so
Yeah.
very, very
Well, I think,
difficult
yeah, what you're
situation that
saying,
we are in.
yeah, what you're saying is true because we do something with our science and our technology, with our brain, to solve a problem. And the thing is, we're out of harmony with nature, out of balance with nature. So then we try to solve it, and then it creates, like you say, an unintended consequence, which makes us even more out of balance. So then we try to solve that, and it goes even more out of balance, and we keep going farther and farther out of balance with these so-called unintended consequences. The reason it's unintended, we think we have good intentions, right? We want to have a good life. We want to be comfortable. We want to have everything convenient and nice, but we see ourselves as essentially separate from nature and superior. Like you say, there's a certain arrogance, like we can dominate and use however we like, and that has the seeds of its own destruction in it. And I think there is something very tempting. It's like a temptation. If you read the old, like Goethe's Faust, and the myth of the story of the scientist who's tempted by the devil, and how the bargain with the devil is you can have more wealth, more power, everything, but you've got to basically manipulate nature and go along with what we're doing. And I think that's really what we've done. We've made a bargain with the devil in a sense. But think we have to go back and
Yeah,
realize the
yeah.
original bargain with the devil was animal agriculture, was eating animals, was like that's where we really get this idea of we're superior to animals and we're going to enslave them and steal their babies and steal their freedom and steal everything from them. That's where we really went off the track. And if we keep dominating animals, we're going to keep having a science that's that kind of domination. So these two go together. I think that's an important point.
Yeah, certainly domestication was one of the biggest mistakes, and we are trying to undo it. But hopefully, it worked on me. But many other people, my family, for example, they are not fully vegan. I mean, my mother is trying, but it's quite difficult for that's that I think that's the trauma that in people that we don't understand them. Like right now, as I went vegan, 6 years vegan, we are over how many is like 40 years, right? Vegan. So I bet you even don't understand them, right? Can you understand them? Can you empathize with them? I can't anymore. You know what I mean? Because you need to heal those traumas from all these brainwashing,
Right.
childhood trauma, and I will mentioned, I will ask you this question as well. Actually, I should ask the second question because okay, we touched too many of these points, so I can skip some questions actually. So skip this one we mentioned. So there is another third question. What is the link between technology, addictions, trauma, and veganism?
Right. The link between technology, trauma, and veganism, basically, an addiction. You know, the thing is, when we are out of balance, I'm really glad you started with that because we are inherently, I feel like, for me again, I've spent years as a Zen Buddhist practitioner, I still am, and as a Zen Buddhist monk, and I spent thousands of hours sitting in meditation, just working with my mind and going deeper into consciousness. And so what I discovered in that whole process is that that's what we are. That's what I am. I am consciousness. And the body, I'm not the body. I am not this body. This body was born and will die, but I wasn't born and I won't die. I'm what makes this possible. But we live in a culture where we're told that we're this body and this name and this accumulation, and we're separate, and each one of us is separate, and we look at each other as separate, and then we naturally try to manipulate each other, other humans and animals and nature, however we can, because we're separate, so we're afraid. I mean, this whole thing is based on an illusion of being a body
Yeah.
and separate, and so that leads invariably to addiction, because if we're unhappy because we can't, because we think the only way I can get security and happiness is to get something. I have to get money. I have to get people to like me. I have to keep away those things. So I'm always in this struggle. And so, of course, that's miserable. That's tension. That's stress. And so if I can just have a drink of alcohol, if I can just have a drug that'll take me out of this, if I can just have some kind of sexual thing that'll make me forget it or whatever, we just try to avoid reality. And so we're just pulled into addiction. And the addiction and then trauma is inherent in all of this, because when we see others as objects to be used, pretty soon we start abusing each other. And we get, as little kids, we get traumatized. As little kids, we're born into this system. And the medical system is already traumatizing. As soon as you're born, they whack you around, they vaccinate, they stab all these poisons. We get criticized and blamed and shamed, and we have to compete. And we're just and these wounds make us, they just reinforce everything. So what you're talking about and what we're talking about here is healing the wounds, right? And the main way to heal the wounds is to understand what's happening, to see the whole thing, to realize we've been born into a culture that's based on materialism and based on violence and domination of the weak by the strong, and that science is a tool for all of that. It just reinforces all that separation. And that the wisdom traditions, like you talked about, like Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and really even the wisdom traditions from the Western tradition also, they're there, but they've been suppressed, and so we're not aware of them. So we have to go within. I think we really have to go within and understand this intuitively, but also we can understand it intellectually as well, just to see, how we were wounded and how we can begin the healing process, and have compassion for each other too. I think that's important to see. When someone is attacking me, they're wounded, and we're only here for a few short decades in this body. It's just a short time. So realize that it's just a short time. And do your best every day to uncover the truth of being, both internally and conceptually. I think that's really the key.
Yeah. I have a saying. I just figured out this like 2 months ago. When I say this, I say a bad thing is too much of a good thing because it's like out of balance, right? So I to not be hateful, to not be negative. Whenever some problem arises, I say, okay, this is too much of a good thing. That's why it became bad thing. So you can just put in a perspective that this is actually a good thing in balance, but it's out of balance and became a bad thing. So actually, what you mentioned is I think there is a deeper thing there at play, because you said that we think that we are separate, and that's the issue. I think the issue is even deeper, because let's say in the wild, I always think about the natural settings in harmony. They live pretty much in harmony, right? So these animals still, let's say the lion, etc., they might still think that they are individual, because this is, I think, the uh, inevitable um, thing with the existing. It's the nature of existence, in a way, that you think locally, you can't just process all these things. But I think what what is the real problem is maybe not that we think that we are separate. We are, again, uh, somehow something happened to humans, that we are trying to uh, you know come up with new things faster and faster, because, as I said, like, if the separation, the feeling of separation was the only issue, then the animals, etc., they will also, not be able to live in harmony. But somehow, magically, because they were, like, evolved that way, um, they can manage to live together. Everything works out, even if they behave selfishly in a way, because the whole system is, intelligent in a way. But we kind of took that intelligence. Um, that's my view on this topic. But yeah, it also that's why I think humans had to come up with concepts, to such as not being divided, seeing as a whole, everything as a whole, that this is necessary to heal human soul, human
Right.
mind. Animals don't need, but we so isolation is one part of the problem, because um, we need to heal that feeling of isolation as humans. Animals don't need to heal that, but we as humans need to realize that we are one, because we are the ones out of harmony, basically. Yeah, if I can put into words, like, to expand on your intuition, or on your uh, wisdom, in a way. So another question: what type of psychological tricks does the technological civilization play on people to keep them docile, and how did modern self-help gurus hijack Taoism to benefit technological civilization? So, like, psychological tricks that they are playing on us to enhance the system, the technological civilization,
Yeah. Well, um,
etc. What do you
that's a
think about
the
this question?
psychological tricks. Basically, as soon as we're born, we're born into a system where we're dumbed down. That's a psychological trick. Like they put, in the United States, for example, there's fluoride in the water. Fluoride is well known to reduce our intelligence, make us more docile. There's all kinds of drugs,
Funny.
pharmaceutical drugs, like put into injections, that heavy metals and PCBs, and I mean all kinds of stuff go into these injections. And so those cause chronic illness and damage the nervous system, making us more docile. And parents have to take care of kids that can hardly function nowadays. So we're being poisoned. I mean, that's one thing. We're just being poisoned. There's geoengineering in the skies. There's toxic chemicals sprayed in the skies. There's in the water, in the food, in the air. The more you can poison humanity, the more chronically sick we are, the more we're just not as alive. So it's really important for us as individuals to be proactive to avoid being poisoned, right? To eat plant-based, plant-sourced foods, organic, whole plant-based foods. Make sure we have filters on the water. Make sure you have good air. Make sure, just do our best not to be poisoned, because when we get poisoned, which is what they're trying to do, it's much harder to actually be clear in our thinking and have energy in the morning when we wake up to live and question reality. So that's one of the things. And then education, we're just tricked. I mean, we have this whole history, like what happened in the past it's all a bunch of lies. We have to understand that everything we think
Yeah.
happened in the past is probably did not never happened, or probably happened in a different way. We get these official stories of what happened on 9/11, or what happened in World War II or World War I, or how people used to live. I mean, the whole idea, we're taught in school, for example, that if you go back a long time ago, before we were so civilized, people lived like animals. It was really terrible. They were dirty. They were sick. They died when they were only in their 30s. Everybody, it was just terrible. But now we
I,
have technology. Now we have convenience. Now we have hot and cold running water. We have refrigeration. People, you have to tell people that. Otherwise,
don't look back.
they would never allow themselves to sit inside a little cubicle for 8 hours a day, looking into a screen, typing, and just wasting their life basically. Unless you told them, oh, it was much worse before. You should be glad you have it
Yeah.
this good now. You can go home, you can watch television. I mean, the whole thing is we tell people that in the past it was so miserable. And I really doubt that. I think there was, there was some suffering, of course, there always has been. But I think when people lived closer to the earth, there were a lot of times when people were relaxed. They felt in harmony. They felt a great sense of joy, and there was solidarity. There was a sense of connection with nature. We can't even imagine really how their quality of their consciousness was in other times. There's a saying in the Tao Te Ching, which is in the past, long ago in the past, when people lived in harmony with nature, they made no history, right? They didn't write books. They didn't feel the need to make a history because they were just living in the moment and they were happy. And so we don't know what it was like. And just the same way, we don't know what it's like to be a lion or a chicken or a wild living free goat or anything. We can't even imagine. And we think it must be terrible that they get attacked and killed, perhaps, but we don't know what's in their consciousness, the basic sense of being part of a dance of life. We don't really know. We know what we would think if we were them, but we're already polluted. So I think we have to realize we really don't know anything. And science, which we trust to tell us the truth about reality, is completely unreliable because it's based on the false understanding of reality of being separate. So to me, science is no better in understanding reality than, say, art or poetry or music. It's just another little system we have that we try to figure things out. But I think in many ways poetry is more accurate in describing reality than science can ever be, because science is based on so many false foundations, and yet we don't see it. With poetry we can say, oh, that's what he thinks, but the heck with it. But with science we say, oh, it's what is it? That's what this is in a peer-reviewed journal. This is evidence-based truth. And we think, well, peer-reviewed journal, that just means a bunch of people agreed on something and they're already all deluded, and it got printed in a magazine which is paid for by the industry that wants to have people think a certain way. The whole thing is totally corrupt, for one thing. Then at a deeper level, it's based on a whole set of assumptions about reality, which we don't even know what reality is. We have our eyes and ears and these senses bring things in. But where does the universe even exist, right? If we're in the middle of a dream, it's real, right? If I'm in the middle of a dream, it's totally real, and I'm interacting, I'm seeing, I'm hearing, I'm tasting, I'm feeling all kinds of things. And then I wake up and I go, oh, that was just in my consciousness. So what the Buddha said essentially is this world is a dream. It's in your consciousness, and you think it's actually, we don't know. We have to have some humility and do some inner work and realize that like you say, there are powerful forces that are trying to trick us so that we trust them, and we'll take their drugs and we'll do their jobs and we'll agree with their narratives. Because as I write about in Food for Freedom, right now we're in a situation where 1/10,000th of 1% of the human population has so much money that they can control the narrative of what we think. They control the educational system, the governmental systems, the banking system, the corporations, everything. They control all the institutions. So everything we think, all our opinions, they've been put into our minds by the media and by the educational system. And we think that it's true because that's what we heard, that's what we read in the books. But it's all been placed into our consciousness. It's not ours. It's just
Yeah.
what we've been told and we believe it. So it's very
Yeah.
difficult for us to have an understanding of reality without doing a lot of inner work.
Yeah. Including the religion of science. This was put in us, and many people, when we talk against science, they will say, the science is objective. What are you talking about? Look, we sent man to the moon, etc. But they don't understand that what we mean by that is, okay, let alone the corruption in the scientific peer journals, etc. Let alone this, the basically modern science that uses technology is all about control. It's not about understanding nature. It's about controlling nature. Once people understand this, they will start criticizing science, and they will understand that science is too simplistic in this very complex universe. We are not never going to understand what's going on by using science. We will understand what's going on once we look deep in ourselves and realize that you just are conscious all these type of things that these people 2,500 years ago they realized without any technical measurements, etc. These technical measurements, figuring this out, figuring that out very simplistically, very locally. These are tools of control. These are not tools of understanding. That's what I say
Right.
about science. The modern, it became really big religion and very difficult to debunk because everyone is us that is good and it is giving us goodies. Actually, it's taking more. That is giving us, burgers and then making people obese and unhealthy. But people just focus on the burgers and they're addicted to it. So they say science is good. Look, this, such things. But yeah, I 100% agree. Um, so why is it so important to have self-discipline and manage our fear reaction?
Right. It's yeah. I mean, self-discipline, or I think another even better word maybe is self-reliance. This ability to not to look to outside authorities for the truth. That's what we're taught always, to go to the authority, the experts. They've spent years studying a subject and they know better than you will ever know. And these authorities, like I have a PhD from the number one ranked university in the United States, Berkeley, School of Education. I went through all that and I realized quite honestly that it's all, in many ways, it's an illusion. You have to become a certain way and think in a certain way, and then you'll get the degree, and you'll be official. That you're one of the authorities. So becoming an authority though doesn't mean. It just means a specialized, like a set of blinders that has been put on, and you look at the world in a certain way, and everyone agrees, and you get paid a lot of money and get a lot of respect because you somehow have the agreed upon proof that you know something. And then you have groups of people that do that and they support each other, and you have journals and the whole system. And then the media, of course, reinforces that, and the government reinforces it, and everybody reinforces it. And we never look to ourselves for truth. We always look outside of ourselves, out there. The truth must be in somewhere else. They know. And like you say, we've created this religion, and it's a faith-based religion. It's a totally faith-based religion. And like any faith-based religion, we have these priests, and they have their special incantations, these words that we can't even comprehend, these long words. And they have these mysterious rituals that they do with special instruments that we could never understand. And then they proclaim things, and we just have to trust them. And we do. We trust them. We let them just cut us open and stick things in us and tell us the way the world is.
They know what
all these things, but it's just based on faith. We just believe because we've been told to believe. And so the real discipline, I think, is to take our consciousness and look inside and inquire about our true nature and realize that within us already there is tremendous wisdom. Within us already there's tremendous joy. That there's always within me a bubbling spring of joy that needs nothing in the outer world. I don't need to buy anything. I don't need to get anything. I don't need anything to be happy. Just being a being and looking out of our eyes
Yeah.
and seeing the beauty of nature. That's it. We don't need more. That's joy. That's bliss. that's that's fantastic, right? We don't need anything. And then within ourselves already is tremendous wisdom. If we knew how much wisdom was in us, that we know that we are one with all life, that one life lives through all of us, and we are interconnected, and we're just here to bless the world, and we don't need anything. We have already wisdom that can heal anything in our body, that can understand and be free. We have tremendous capacities, human beings, and we've seen some people with tremendous capacities. Certain individuals develop certain abilities. We all have these abilities, what we call intuitive or psychic or telepathic. I mean, there's so many abilities we have that science says, no, you don't have that. But we do. We have tremendous capacities, and I think that's where that's the future. Instead of looking for science to give us a positive future, we should look at spirituality and introspection and our true nature, and like you say, balance and discipline. That's the way to a positive future, through balance, through discipline, through self-reliance, through humility, compassion, kindness, caring, the inner wisdom that we have. That's the way to happiness. The problem with science is it erodes our discipline. We want to always just have convenience. It erodes our self-reliance. We want to always be comfortable. We want to set a thermostat and always have it be warm when it's cold and cool when it's hot. We don't want to feel anything in nature. We don't want to have anything impinge on us from nature. Nature becomes our enemy. We use technology to keep nature away. And so we don't realize that if we just open up and feel what it's like to be cold and feel what it's like to be hot, it's not that bad. We can, I mean, there are people that live in other cultures that delight in swimming in cold water. It's not the end of the world, or whatever. I mean, we have so much more possibilities for enjoying the world than we realize. I think technology unfortunately harms us because it puts blinders on us, and it takes away our wisdom. It takes away our natural sense of just adventure, just being part of a great adventure. It wants to control everything, like you say. Science wants to control and dominate, and pretty soon we get narrow, and we're afraid of everything. We're afraid of germs. We're afraid of viruses. We're afraid of nature. We're always afraid of nature because we're fighting with it all the time. And I'm not afraid of nature. I never get sick. I'm not worried about bacteria. I'm not worried about viruses. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not, because I'm part of nature. I'm not worried about anything. And I think we're just taught to be afraid of nature. That's part of what science does. It creates this war mentality, like it's us against nature. And we don't realize
Yeah.
how damaging that really is.
Yeah. And also about looking in and not trusting others, including science, or this system that's right that was built on technology science basically. And I give the example of eating plant-based. Uh, we don't need, or actually, if people could look at how they feel when they see animals being murdered, right? If they could really connect with what they are doing, they won't do it automatically. So they will automatically
Right.
eat plant-based. But so many people say, but science tells us what is healthy, what is not, etc. But if we really look into ourselves, I think how we feel about things, if we are not traumatized, if we could somehow heal our traumas, we would already automatically know what to do. in a healthy way. But that's another question here, that how to heal our traumas. I will come to that. What is the effect of specialization of labor and making the realization of wisdom the duty of a few monks? So we have a few priests or monks. The spirituality is their job, and other people should just listen to them, or so they just exported their duty of spirituality, basically. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. We have, I mean, traditionally, very often in both in Europe and in Asia and different places, we had the idea that if you want to live a spiritual life, you become a monk and you live in a monastery, or a nun, live in a nunnery, or you go off into the mountains and by yourself. But everybody else just kind of works and grows food and lives and trades and all of that. And that's too bad in a way. I mean, I think, spirituality is something that it's all of us. I mean, all of us. It's important for all of us to cultivate that. Some people feel it more strongly, and so they want to just leave the world and do it on their own. And I did that. I went to South Korea. I lived in a monastery, and I could feel there is a power in that. Just, you don't have to deal with money. You don't have to deal with work. You don't have to deal with relationships very much. You're just meditating and living in a community focused on the inner working, and then other people are kind of supporting you and helping the people, because they can't do it, but they like that you're doing it. And I think there's a certain healthy synchronicity there. But I think it's even more healthy if everyone has, integrates spirituality in with the daily living. And I think that happens more when we're growing our own food, when we have a decentralized world, when centralization of power and money and control always creates big problems, because then you have just a few people dominating, and everybody else, now they have to pay money to survive. And so it just creates all kinds of imbalances. And but ultimately, what I see happening now in our society is there's not even monks and nuns anymore. I mean, it's like nobody doing spirituality. Everybody's just frantically trying to survive, and that's even worse. And there's a real there's an attack on spirituality, an attack on religion. There's this whole, like, when COVID happened, they just shut down all the churches, and they shut down all the yoga studios. They shut down everything. And the idea was that's not important. And I think we need to really resurrect spirituality and religion. I mean, in the authentic sense of doing the inner work, but and try to have everybody realize that that's how we enrich our lives. We're not just here to just work and procreate and die. I mean, we're here to try to get some wisdom and be creative. I love creating music. Other people create art or writing or videos or social movements, whatever, but create something that is a contribution, a positive contribution to society. And like you created that beautiful video, that kind of helps to show the beauty of nature and the complexity and harmony of nature, and then how human beings have sort of created this like a imbalance, like a cancer almost, in the whole body of the created order, and how we can come back again to our wisdom. And really, it's like you say, the farther we go away from our balance, we go even farther. It's like it just feeds on itself. It snowballs. And once we discovered, it's interesting, once we discovered electricity, I remember it was just a few hundred years ago, like 200 years ago or so, Benjamin Franklin was flying a kite, and he figured out, oh, lightning has electricity in it. What's electricity? Wow, what the heck is electricity? We didn't even know. And then somehow with Tesla and Edison, they figured out we can generate electricity. We can burn, like we can have steam and run turbines and make electricity. Then we can run the electricity through wires. And then we can spread the electricity through the air. We can have radio and television and Wi-Fi, and then we can have batteries, and we can carry it around, and then we can make electronics and put it through little circuits. And and then the more we do it, the more it creates these wonders, and these wonders just like bring us farther and farther away from nature into our own little world, which is
Yes,
completely
yes,
separated from nature. And we think it's great, but we don't realize we're trapped. We're trapped in this world
yeah.
that is complete, that goes far, that just pulls us farther and farther away. And now we're dependent on everything outside of us, and we've lost touch with our own wisdom, our own joy, our own basic purpose in life. So that's the thing to understand, is we need to get back into rootedness with nature and start growing our own food, communicating and being more self-reliant, more self-sufficient, decentralized, and I would say unplug as much as we can from technology and just only use it as little as we can and try to create something more real, really.
Yeah. So do you think maybe two more questions, maybe 2 minutes each? So do you think that minor traumas have a role in healing major traumas? For example, when I saw what happens to animals, because I believe that as a non-vegan in the past, I was traumatized when we were little. We are traumatized with this, eating animals, and disconnecting. And maybe these minor traumas might remind us what happened to us, and we can overcome them, and bring it to our consciousness. What do you think about this? Having minor traumas in a friendly way.
That's a good point. I like that. That's kind of a original point. I think, yeah, because when we look at the violence toward animals, it can be traumatic, like you say, and it can help to heal the bigger trauma, which is our own eating all this trauma. That's a huge trauma, which we've buried. We don't think about it. It's this huge hidden trauma. So sometimes it takes a little trauma to help us heal a bigger trauma. That's a good point. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
I agree.
last question: do you think that the world can turn vegan under this technological civilization? Because we have established that it is causing traumas, growing problems, and people are trying to heal. But I think this trauma is spreading faster than they can heal. Maybe this can explain why people are this mad in a way, insane in many ways. Do you think that as long as this technological civilization exists, can we have a truly like vegan world if it is not benefiting the technological civilization? Because if it benefits the technological civilization, let's say the resources are running low, etc., people will go plant-based for technological civilization. But do you think that people will go for vegan for ethical reasons, for like sanity under the technological civilization? Can
I think that's a really good question. And right now we're living in a technological wounded world. It's wounded by animal agriculture and it's wounded by technology, both, and they go together. So here we are, but we are human beings, so we are spiritual, so we have tremendous power. So I think the most important thing is to go vegan, right? The most important thing is to stop the violence towards animals, and each one of us as individuals, and begin the healing process. But I'm really glad you brought this up. That healing process should include not only questioning eating animal foods, but also questioning technology, which goes along with it, and then try to bring our lives back to a more authentic connection with nature. Like we have a food forest right here where we have 75 fruit trees and 7 beds of vegetables, and we're just growing a lot of our own food. And so we're connected with nature every day, and the beauty of trees and birds and the whole insects and the whole thing. And I think each one of us can do that. But the good thing is that when we as a society I think if we reach a critical mass, I think if maybe 10, 15% of people would go vegan, get a good amount, that would make everyone will start going vegan. People will realize, I don't want to eat that violence. It's unhealthy. get enough people, and then when our society moves toward veganism, we will transform. And I think people will become much more aware and much more intelligent in the sense that we'll see that we'll realize our technology in many ways is harming us. And we will, Mahatma Gandhi talked about appropriate technology, just finding ways that simple, we don't need a lot of complex technology. I mean, I think we could live with very simple things and be much happier, allowing ourselves to live in smaller communities, being more connected to the earth. We don't need all this electronics, all this stuff. I think, really, quite honestly, it's a bargain with the devil. And Rudolf Steiner he said the devil has two aspects. He said it's Lucifer and Ahriman. And Ahriman is the aspect of technology. It's always pulling us in with electronics and with these things that really disconnect us from nature. And yeah, so I think it's possible. I do think it's possible. Yeah, but we have to go vegan. That's the most important thing. And question technology.
I hope so. That's yeah. So thank you very much. Amazing. I'm very happy about this interview, and thank you very much for your very valued inputs. To the listeners, please go and read World Peace Diet and the other books. You have a book published, I think, last year, right? It was just last year.
Yeah. This one, Food for Freedom.
What was the name of the book?
Right? Food for Freedom.
Yeah.
We have another new one called The World Peace Way. But all of it, if you just go to worldpeacediet.com, that everything's there. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
thanks, everyone.